everybody!
Hey everyone! Welcome to a non-werewolf monsters and mythology. I'm TM Sparrow, writer and homeschooling mom, and today we're going to talk about dragons. Now, for the last year, pretty much every video in this series has been some kind of werewolf story. Because I'm obsessed or something. It's been a lot of fun, but today I wanted to branch out. As much as I love werewolves and the supernatural, fantasy was my first love. And dragons, of course, hold a special place in my heart. So today I'm doing something a little different. Dragon lore is so diverse. There are dragon myths from cultures spanning the globe and dating at least as far back as the Babylonian creation myth about the sun god Marduk and the dragon Tiamat. So there's really a lot to dive into with dragons, which is super exciting. Today, I'm going to tell you about 10 kinds of dragons. Not like specific dragon legends, but more like species of dragons that you can find in the lore. But TM, are there really 10 types of dragons? Well, keep watching and you'll find out. Plus, at the end, I'm going to tell you one of my favorite dragon legends. An important note before I start. There are tons and tons of different resources on dragons, and it can be difficult to sort all of that information. Like I said, there are dragon legends around the world, and many of them can be contradictory to each other. So with that said, this is my interpretation of all of the different information I've read in my years as a dragon enthusiast. Number 1. Worms. Now, this is one of two terms that I've seen used interchangeably with dragon. However, as a specific term, a worm is a serpent-like dragon with no wings and no legs. Basically, it's a giant snake. The worm is a distinctly European dragon that is commonly seen in French and English legends. It can breathe fire, or more commonly, poison. 2. Amphideer. The Amphideer is very similar to a worm in that it has a long, snake-like body with no legs, but it does have wings. Now, most often these wings were feathery and bird-like, but occasionally they could be seen as more bat-like. I also haven't found any reference to the Amphideer having any abilities as far as breathing fire or the like. 3. Wyvern. The wyvern is yet another dragon with a long serpentine body. However, the wyvern does have 2 legs and bat-like wings that can also function similarly to arms. Number 4. Drakes. Although the term drake is also used synonymously with dragon on many occasions, it is also its own specific type of dragon which has 4 legs and no wings. Number 5. The classical Western dragon. The classical Western dragon is the dragon that you most commonly see in fantasy stories. It's huge, it has 4 legs, it has wings, and it can breathe fire or even sometimes poison. Number 6. Dragonettes. A dragonette is pretty much just a miniature dragon, which is honestly pretty adorable in my head. Number 7. The Lindworm. The Lindworm brings us back to those snake-like dragons. So it has a long, serpentine body and 2 front legs. Legends of the Lindworm seem to mostly come from the area of Europe where Germany, Austria, and Sweden are. Number 8. The Lung Dragon. Now, our final three dragons come from Eastern mythology, which is quite a bit different than the Western lore. While European dragons are often used as a symbol of evil, Eastern dragons are more often benevolent. The Lung is a long serpentine dragon, and while it does fly, it doesn't have any wings. It does have 4 legs with 5 toes on each foot. These dragons are seen as symbols of wisdom, power, and luck. Number 9, the Ryu. So, I'm not as familiar with these, but the Ryu is a Japanese dragon. It is very similar to the Lung dragon in that it has a long serpentine body, no wings, and 4 legs. But each foot has 3 toes, and they are heavily associated with the water. And number 10, the Yong. Again, this dragon is incredibly similar to both the Lung and the Ryu, which is really to be expected in cultures that are so close together. The main difference in these dragons is the number of toes, with the Yong having 4 toes on each foot. Like the Ryu, it too is associated with the water, but also with agriculture. It is very heavily associated with rain and the clouds, with it often being said that the Yong brings the rain. Okay, so now that we've had kind of a brief overview of some dragon species, I want to share with you one of my favorite dragon legends. This is the story of the Lambton Worm. Just a note before I start with the actual story, this tale comes to us from the Middle Ages, and I feel like that really shows in the overt religious themes. The story goes that young John Lambton was a lazy, disrespectful man living in northeast England. So, one Sunday afternoon, he decides that instead of going to church, he would rather spend the afternoon fishing. So, that day, John Lambton headed to the river with his fishing gear. Along the way, he passed an old man who stopped and looked him over. Spotting the fishing pole, the old man shook his head. "No good can come of skipping church, young man," he said, but John just laughed and waved him off. He spent the entire morning fishing, but caught nothing until the church services let out. As the people headed home from church, John felt something tugging on his line. It was a hard fight, but eventually he reeled in his catch. However, it wasn't the ordinary fish that he was expecting. No, this thing was about 3 feet long and looked like some kind of bizarre cross between an eel and a snake, with the head of a salamander and 9 holes on either side of its skull. John was rightfully horrified. "What have you got there?" someone called from behind him. John turned to see the old man that he had passed earlier that morning. "I think I've caught the devil himself," John said, holding up the wriggling creature. But the old man didn't look shocked as John had expected. Instead, he just gave a sharp nod. "Aye, you caught it, and now you must keep it," he told John. John frowned and looked out across the river. "Are you sure I can't just put it back?" He turned back, but the old man was already gone. He stared at the thing some more as it writhed and twisted on his line, gnashing its teeth. The old man was right. He couldn't take it off the line or else it might start attacking him. Now, he could have, grabbed a branch and clubbed the thing to death while it was on the line. Or he could have carried it home and chopped it up with a knife, but no. This guy goes and takes this creature and throws it into the village well. And with the thing no longer being his problem, he goes off to live the rest of his life. Eventually, John leaves to fight in whatever crusade was going on at the moment, and left all thoughts of the monster behind. The villagers, however, didn't have that option. Not long after John left, the people of the village started to get sick. They realized that all the people who had gotten sick had drunk from that particular well. Now, this being the Middle Ages, they probably thought the well was cursed or something. But things were only going to get worse. First, the livestock started to go missing. A sheep here, a lamb there, and there were these suspicious blood smears around the well. It wasn't long before the occasional child started to disappear. The people were terrified, especially once the creature outgrew the well and made its home coiled up around a hill outside of the village. Some of the men tried to kill it. They stabbed it with their steely knives, but they just couldn't kill the beast. Eventually, knights began to come to test themselves against the worm, but they all lost their lives in the attempt. It would coil around them and squeeze the life out of them. Or, if it was particularly annoying, it would wrap its tail around a bunch of trees, pull them from the ground, and use them as a club to beat the knights to a bloody smear. In some versions of the story, the dragon has 2 forelimbs, technically making it a Lindworm, which the Lambton Lindworm has a really nice alliterative ring to it, so I don't know why they didn't just go with that. Anyway, in these versions, some of the knights were able to cut off one of those limbs, but the dragon just picked it up and reattached it to itself, which honestly is pretty horrifying. So the worm eventually made its way to Lambton Castle, where John's father had his servants put out gallons and gallons of milk. The worm drank the milk and then slithered back to its hill where it slept. But the next day, it came back looking for more. And that's how things were when John returned from the Crusades 7 years after he left. Once all the excitement of his return had died down, John's father told him about the worm. John confessed his guilt to his father and declared his intention to finally take responsibility for what he had done and kill the beast. John's father wasn't thrilled, but he accepted this and sent his son to consult a wise woman, or in some versions, a witch, to see what could be done. John did as his father instructed and went to see the woman. She advised him to have the blacksmith cover his armor in razor-sharp spears and to find the beast at the river and fight it there. But she warned him, if he succeeded, he would have to kill the first living thing that he saw, or else no Lambton would die peacefully in their bed for the next 9 generations. Which doesn't sound terrible as far as curses go. I mean, some people do get to die peacefully in their beds after a long and happy life, and clearly that is a desirable way to go. But this was the Middle Ages, so I kind of feel like most people didn't really expect a peaceful death anyway. Curse practicality aside, John does as the woman says, and while the blacksmith is fixing up his armor for him, John comes up with a plan. So he tells his father about this potential curse, and they decide that if John returns home successful, he will blow his hunting horn 3 times. Then his father will have the servants release his old hunting hound. Then the hunting hound will be the first living thing that John sees, and John will kill the hound, thus avoiding the curse. So, with everything arranged, John went down to the river to fight the worm. Anytime the worm tried to squeeze him, those sharp spear points would cut into it, causing it to let him go. And because they were fighting at the river, anytime John managed to hack a piece of the worm off, it fell into the water and was carried away before it could be reattached. Thus, after a long, difficult battle, John was finally able to slay the beast, releasing the villagers from the consequences of his misspent youth. John headed home, tired and bruised, but he didn't forget to sound his horn 3 times as he arrived home. Unfortunately, John's father did forget about the curse and their arrangement, and he rushed out to greet his son, excited that he was still alive. John was horrified. He couldn't kill his own father. Still, he tried to offer at least something to avoid the curse, and he went ahead and killed the old hound anyway. Sadly, this was a needless death, as it wasn't enough to prevent the curse of 9 generations of Lambtons not dying peacefully in their beds. Now, the Lambton family did actually exist, and there are historical records of several of them dying violent or sudden deaths. But honestly, I feel like that probably would have happened anyway. Like I said, this was the Middle Ages, and there was so much disease and war, and I feel like most people did not expect to die peacefully in their beds at a nice old age. So that's all I have for you today. But I want to know what your favorite dragon legend is. You can let me know in the comments down below. Or, as always, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. And if you want to see more, then don't forget to subscribe. I post new videos on Wednesdays. See you next time. It's a Christmas Ava.
Yep, that's right, because it's almost Christmas. The most wonderful time of the year.
I'm TM Spare. Whoa. There are... bleh. Today, I'm going to tell you about 10 types of dragons. No, not like Pokemon dragon types, or... bleh. Not like specific dragon legends, but more like dragon species that you can find in the different lore. Bleh. 1. No. But, 3. Wyverns. Bleh. Number 4. Bleh. While European dragons are often used as a symbol of evil, While European dragons are often these dragons are often Number 9. The Ryu. No, I hate that. But each leg has each foot. Again, the story goes that John Lambton was a disrespectful but the old man didn't look shocked as he had expected. He stared at the thing some more, as it In some versions of the story, the dragon does have 2 forms, which the Lambton Lindworm has a really nice alliterative. The worm drank the milk and then slithered back to its hill to where it's